Hi, this is Marc Salem. To learn about the wonderful world of mentalism, join me on Bharath's YouTube channel.
Hello, my dear magic friends in India. So, I'm your host Bharath here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel Mallugic. So, this interview is something really truly special because our guest is actually a really special person. So, before telling the name of this guest, I will tell them something about him. Okay, so he is one of the most successful mentalists in this world, and in terms of academics, he holds advanced degree from University of Pennsylvania and New York University, and has been on faculty of several major universities for close to 2 decades. That's pretty great. And he is considered one of the world's foremost authorities on non-verbal communication. So he's not just a mentalist. He has the major and big degrees on the psychology and body language and about human mind. He researched a lot about this field. And as a researcher, Professor Salem has traveled the globe exploring the mind and its potential. And he was a director of research of Sesame Street, studying the development and nature of mental process. So, guys, it's none other than Marc Salem. So, hello, Marc. How are you?
Hello, everybody. Hi, it says Moshe Botwinick, but it's the same person.
Yeah, I think Marc Salem is actually easy for me to pronounce it. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I don't know
Thank you
how
so much
that.
for accepting my invitation for doing this interview. It's absolutely my honor to have you.
I'm delighted to see you and your viewers.
Thank you.
Delighted.
So, yeah, with that said, let's start the session. So, talking about mentalism, there are like two kind of mentalists out there in this world. Those who really study about this field, about body language, psychology, and about human mind, and then later started studying mentalism and claim it as mentalist. And then there are mentalists like they don't know anything about psychology and body language, and they just learn some tricks from the DVDs and book, and then they claim themselves as a mentalist. And I can read minds, I do NLP, micro expressions, and all. I know those stuffs. So there are two kind of mentalists. So talking about you, you hold the advanced degree about psychology and body language from the University of
Yes.
Pennsylvania and New York University. That's amazing. So you are the kind of a person who knows, who have a vast knowledge about this field. So let's start the session. So let me ask you something. How did it get started? Is it like you got interested in mentalism at the young age, and then for learning mentalism you went to these universities to take degree, or after degree you got interested in mentalism?
No, I was already interested in mentalism and how the mind worked at the age of 10. Um, I never went through the magic phase. I went straight into mentalism because the mind fascinated me, which is why I chose psychology, and I worked in children's television and how the mind is impacted by stuff. I worked on the Surgeon General studies of the effects of violence on television on children. I was at Sesame Street for 10 years as a director of research. So, I've always been interested. Now, to take the next step, what was just a series of circumstances. I was doing some stuff one evening, and ultimately it was seen by some producers, and they said, "Could you do a show like this 8 times a week?" And I said, "Okay," and it became a monster hit. That was before you were born. And that was the first Mind Games, and it ran for close to a year in New York City. And from there on in, then I left teaching. I was on faculty, and I was a psychologist. And I began to intertwine the two, mentalism and academics. And I realized I need to keep them separate. So my show is not a lecture, but if people come to my show looking for wisdom, wrong place. Go to the classroom. If you come to be entertained and laugh and have a good time, then I'm the person. I'm not your guru. I'm your entertainment for the night.
That sounds so great. So, according to you, like, for every mentalist in the world, they have their own definition of mentalism. They have their own philosophy about mentalism. So how do you define mentalism, and what's your philosophy about mentalism?
Well, I think mentalism is reading minds. Okay, I think the word mentalist, if you say it in Great Britain, they think you're nuts, because a mentalist is an insane person in Great Britain. It's not a very descriptive word until there was a TV series, The Mentalist. I never liked using the word. I always liked to call myself a purveyor of mind games, one who puts mind games on the audience. But it's picked up. It's called mentalism, and I'm stuck with it. But mentalism sounds too mystical, and I want people to realize they're not in for an out-of-body experience, but they're in for a mind-blowing, jaw-dropping, fun experience.
I mean, this is something that which I think most of the mentalists have learned. I mean, you do mentalism in a very entertaining way, and your style is like, you doesn't claim like you have like powers. I mean, superpowers, or you really have that ability to decode the expressions and all. Even though you have the advanced degree from those universities about that, but still you doesn't claim it in your performance. So that's really unique, and that's what makes you special. So talking about that, I heard the fact that you were the very first mentalist and one and only mentalist who successfully performed many shows on Broadway, right?
Yes.
So how was the experience? Like, talk about that a little bit.
Well, I was a university professor in psychology and I used to make some extra income doing mentalism. But after I had met with these producers and started the show, the following year I just couldn't keep up doing 8 shows a week and also teaching. The show became a giant hit. I was pleased, but I must say my first love is teaching. And a lot of people say the show sometimes feels like it's taught by your playful uncle. Because again, I want to educate a little, but the show's really about being entertained, about laughing, about having a good time out. And I think that's one reason I avoided most controversies that other mentalists had. There's, as I say, I never made any claims that I have mental powers, but I do claim to be one of the 3 outstanding researchers in nonverbal communication. This also helped define how I create the show, because the show is not anything goes. The show has limits. Marc Salem has limits, what he could do on stage. He cannot do telekinesis, because that doesn't make sense to me. Anything that I can't do for real doesn't go on my show. So I can't do that whole hour-and-a-half show every night for real, but there's no piece of that show under the right circumstances that people can't do. We could all read somebody language. We all could know when somebody's lying. We all could pick up, again, not in a psychic sense, but pick up a letter somebody's thinking if we spell out a word. So that is the basic premise that I designed in the show. The second thing that I designed into the show is to make sure that people understand that it's not supernatural, right? It's not a cult. I'm here to entertain you. And if you want information about the field, there's a lot of books out there. I mean, I wrote a book for the public based on a lot of my work. I think I sent you a copy.
Yeah.
Which is Firm Psychological Principles. It's not, as you'll see in the self-help section, it's from the business section at Barnes & Noble, for example. Because I geared it a little bit to the businessman who wants to improve, and the student. I mean, it deals with memory, and it deals with techniques to focus and to relax, and things that are not supernatural and things that aren't out of the normal. What is out of the normal, and I've often said this, if I have a sixth sense, it's my sense of humor. All right. That's what I want the audience to leave with. I want them to be gobsmacked, and I want them to be smiling. And if I do those two things, I've succeeded. And as I get older, I'm more and more proud of the show.
Yeah, so like you said, you wrote the mind games, and which was very famous of all time, and also the 6 keys to unlock your 6 keys to unlock and empower your mind. That's what you actually sent it me as a gift, right?
Yes.
So what were the inspiration to write these books? How did it influence you to write this book for the community?
Well, after the shows, eventually people began asking, well, how do I develop these powers or these God-given gifts? And that they'd start asking a lot of questions. So piece by piece, I put together the book to answer those questions. Say, no, there's skills involved in this. You could train yourself at this. You could train yourself at observing things and focusing on things. And like I say, I can't make things move, but I could make you think something moved. There's a famous experiment, for example, if you sit in a dark room and there's one light there, after a while, you're going to see that light moving, only because you don't have a relationship point. So you think the light's moving. Well, no, you're moving. Your eyeballs are moving. So I certainly enjoy reading about the occult, but I enjoy reading science fiction, and I enjoy reading psychology and mysteries and murder stories. So I like a lot of things. And I think that's the most important thing for a mentalist, is to read as much as possible, not just about mentalism, but about the world. The more you know, the better mentalist you're going to be. Because if somebody mentions to you, we were at Mount Fuji last year, you're able to describe Mount Fuji to them, not because you have power, but because you know what Mount Fuji is, where it is, and what their major export is. So the more you know, the more fascinating you'll see.
All right. And let me ask you something, a question which is very general. So it's not like I'm asking. So this is based on, like, many people ask me this question to ask to you. So let's say a person, let's say a mentalist itself. Okay, that mentalist has a lot of ideas about techniques and principles and brand new ideas or principles or whatever. So in order to put those ideas all together and construct in form of a book, that's a different scenario. It's not like performing mentalism. It's not like teaching mentalism. In order to put all those ideas and make it as a routine and put together and construct it in form of a book, that's a whole different scene. So what's your best advice you can give to the people out there? Those people who have ideas about mentalism, who have knowledge, so much knowledge about mentalism, and if they want to start writing a book and construct it in a very good way, what's the best advice you can give to them?
Well, I think the first thing to do is try to get a contract with the publisher. I was already a hit show when I wrote the book, so it made it easier to get a contract for the book. But again, I didn't want to spend time after every show. People would say, explain something to me. And I just didn't want to give them the history of psychology. So I wrote the book to answer as many questions as I could. And if after reading the book they still had questions, they could certainly email me and I would respond. So
that's so kind of you.
It's but the book has puzzles and brain strengtheners and thought experiments, and it's full of it's a joyful celebration of the mind with none of the dark stuff. It's not a dark book. It's a joyful book.
All right. So let me ask you something. In terms of magic or in terms of mentalism, we all know that failures happens. And like there are many people say that see failures are the stepping stone to success, or in order to overcome failures, we should have a backup plan. So if we have a backup plan, then we can overcome failures. That's what most of the performers or the great teachers actually give advice to the students, magic students or mentalism students. So one of the things which I actually want to ask you is that this is actually interesting because you have a vast knowledge in non-verbal communication, psychology, and body language. So did any time on stage when the process of doing mentalism, we know there are like techniques involved. So did any time in your show, like when something goes wrong and you really used your non-verbal communication, body language or psychology in order to overcome that situation, did it ever happen on your show?
Well, I think every good performer has to read their audience. I mean, just as a communicator, you have to see, just like you have to see when they're bored or they're tired or they're not paying attention or they're missing the point. So first of all, feedback is very important. It's very important for me to see my audience, even in the biggest theaters, even 5,000 seat theater. I want to see the audience. I put lights on in the theater. Ultimately, my shows, it's 80% house lighting up so that I could see people and I want to see how they respond and I want to see, do they understand what I'm saying and are they laughing at the right times? Am I speaking too fast tonight? Am I speaking too slow tonight? Is something wrong? So I tried to address those. And I think being a college professor helped me also because that's how I teach. I teach by looking at my students. They're not the same thing. I think if you come expecting a lecture, you're not going to get it in my stage show. There was one night when I was in Australia, and I was interviewed that afternoon on psychology of the mind. So I spoke a great deal, and that night the audience was full of people seeking wisdom instead of seeking entertainment. And I realized it's a dangerous thing even to talk about too much about the mind because people's expectations become very, very tied in with it. So, they didn't come to have fun. They came to be enlightened. So it was a hard show for me. It wasn't a classroom, or at least it shouldn't be.
All right. And also, while doing shows, there are like two kind of mentalism shows. So two kind of magic. Okay, let's not talk about magic now. Let's talk about mentalism show. So I think there are like two kind of mentalism show. One kind of mentalism show is where each and everything effect will be connected until the end. It's like a constructed act. It's like a constructive act. And then the other kind of show is that the mentalist will perform mind-blowing feats on the stage, but each and every effect will be different. It won't be connected. So according to you, when a mentalist do, okay, this is something which is based on every mentalist or every performer's comfortability, but in your perspective, while constructing a mentalism show, does all the effects have to be connected from starting to end, or is it can be totally different?
Well, so you're asking about the structure of the show.
Yes.
Okay. And I feel that you have to begin with something that the audience completely buys into and in fact should be real. So I used to begin my show with memorizing that day's newspaper. And I would literally do that. I'd stay and with mnemonics, memorize, the major pictures and major stories in that day's paper. And weekends became easier because I used America's most popular national newspaper, USA Today. So I already had a template in my mind. But there was one day where I was just too tired to memorize the paper. And I reached way back and I said, let me use the magic square tonight. once again, just as a demonstration of what could be done. And nobody was doing magic square then. And I found it in a book from Animan from the 1940s. And it went over like fantastic. So I began to begin my show with magic square. And I'd say just warming up, and I would, do a quick mathematical square. And again, Animan has a wonderful one in his book, Shh, It's a Secret. That's the name of the book, SHHHHH. It's a secret. And I enjoyed that a great deal, but then soon every mentalist in the world was beginning with magic square. So I had to drop that out of my show because I'm not like every other mentalist, and I changed my beginning to some other things, memorize 20 items or whatever it may be. The thing is, the first item is always something to remember, to demonstrate something where the audience could go, I could do that, because I want them to be able to say, I understand that. Second effect, I then move into something where the audience kind of understands it. Something like bank night routine. A choice of 5 envelopes. Okay, I should have some here. So the old bank night routines, let me just get my... Oh, you'll get, okay. So in this case, I would do something like pick a number, and I would, hard medium to use, I should add. For me, I find Zoom very difficult because again, I want to be able to walk around and show this to the audience, and then suddenly, nobody sees anything. So I explained to the audience, one of these envelopes has some cash and the other envelopes have a good prize. Okay, and then I let the audience pick it out. So, I do all sorts of other things with it. What they win, see, when I come down to the last two and I say, select one of these, okay, let's say they select the one. One. I could, inside this envelope already, I have this. This is my counterfeit bill. And I'd say, look what you won. First they think they won some money, and then they realize, I say,
that's you.
What do you see on it? So and it has my phone number on it and my email on it.
That's a very clever way to market yourself, right?
Yes. These become collectibles, and
to make a gag also.
Nothing at a printer. It's not counterfeiting money, and in fact, it says the United States of Mind Games is what it says. The United States of Mind Games, and that's my website. And I sign it as Secretary of Treasury.
So it's like for the audience, they won the prize money, but when they took it out, it's like very entertaining way, right? To build and also to market yourself.
And now the other people could get a note that says you win a copy of my book, or you win a copy of this, or one. The point is, I don't want anyone to be left with nothing. All right. Because they've lost $100. Basically nobody wins the money. But you have to be careful. Again, if this were real, you'd have to be careful of your angles in the real case. And again, it's a very simple move, but it's convincing that there's nothing here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with my left from my right, uh, and then it's sliding this there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as you can see it right
Yeah,
there.
that move, right.
So that would be the second thing, something that involves several people from the audience. So the first thing is something that everybody understands. The second thing, which is the bank night, I talk about advertising, influencing people, so they understand this, and that we get some laughs with this. I have one piece of tape that this is, I call up three people from the audience. One's a kid. I try to make one of them a kid, and he was just. It's on tape. It comes with my book, Mind Games, which has the whole show on it, 2 CDs. Um, That's where you get it from Richard, Mark,
Uh-huh.
my partner, my friend, and a psychiatrist, and a brilliant creator of mentalism. Now, I had given you a discount list for your viewers,
Yeah.
so they should write to you, and you'll just send them a copy of that through email or
About the
whatever.
last PDF you sent it with the discount and pricing list, right?
Yes.
So I will do that. So
So,
one thing, let me tell to the subscribers. So actually, Mark has sent me a list of PDFs, and one of the PDFs is include like a pricing list of all his books. So if you want to get his books, you can get it in that discounted price exclusively for our viewers.
that's correct. 25% off.
So this is the email ID. Make sure, and I'll also give it in the description.
Okay, so just write to Bharath if you need the address. If somebody needs me for some reason, you don't need me. That's
Yeah,
why I work with
perfect,
Richard, but that's my email.
perfect, perfect.
All right. So the second thing is basically I refer to advertisers. And you could use lots of things for that. There's the tic-tac-toe force. It's a nice spot, the second spot in the show. And you bring up audience members. It's the first time you're bringing up members. For the Magic Square, I need to bring up, and for the memory, I don't need to. So I could stay and center myself on stage. The third thing, already I'm bringing up audience members do something like the bank night. The fourth element, I usually want to go get away from bringing again another. It doesn't look good to me to have a group of people up on stage and then another group come up, another group. So you need to do something with either a larger group or back to the audience. And I have do both. I either do a book test. Oftentimes, I'll ask the audience, has anyone brought a book? And if there's somebody who says yes, I tell them to come up on stage and join me. And we do a book test with their book. Also, you'll see this on the tape that comes with the Mind Games book. I say, did anyone bring a book? If someone raises their hand, I say, oh, did you expect to be bored tonight? Just again to keep the humor rolling. So a book test is a good thing for my next position or something along those lines where you can control the number of people on stage. Then I'll go into the next thing, which I'll probably bring up 5 people, and that's my liaries, 5 liars routine, which is it's a number of people have done something, but it's you draw things, you identify who drew what and how, and that's a good 15 minutes of pure entertainment and ease, as long as you're careful with it. And the whole routine's in the book, but it's basically 5 pieces of poster board. They make drawings on it. I turn my back and I do it on television. I do it everywhere. You could use 4 as well. So that's a lot of room for humor, but it also brings up a lot of people on stage. So they have that opportunity. I then may move to something like an add number. Okay, we haven't really done numbers at this point, so I start to move to something else. But again, I want to use a lot of people, so my add number uses 9 people. Okay,
Wow.
1 for each digit, 3 3-digit numbers. I end up with something like this on a pad, and I walk into the audience and I have them fill each block with any number.
Yeah.
All right. Again, it lets me do some humors. I walk directly into the audience, basically using some sort of flip pad or a Himber wallet. I'll show you how to make your own in a second. And then I predicted through a tape recorder what the total is. So that's, again, it allows me, it's a different pace. Now I'm in the audience, 8 people, 9 people, 10 people are participating. I really enjoy that. It's one of my favorite personal pieces, but only because I'm in the audience. I'm literally standing in the audience, and I run to the back and I run to the front, and I'm exhausted by the time I'm finished. But it's just an added number that's made cute. As I was saying, one way, and I don't remember whose idea it was. I think it was Harry Anderson's. Idea. It's been published, so I'm kind of okay with it. But basically, they write the 3. You almost are doing this impromptu, and you go into the audience and say, "I want you to write 3-digit number," and go to someone else, write a 3-digit number, and go to somebody else and write a 3-digit number. You then go back on stage, and all you do is that. And over here, in other words, you just turn this into a wallet, into a change wallet. So I have my could you see the X's? I don't know.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, so it's simply a matter of taking this, and as I'm walking back to the stage, switching it to this. Under this, I could put 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So again, I'm simply using a bill and doing my switch 1 for the other side that way. And it's beautiful.
Wow, perfect.
And then they add it up, and you've predicted that number. Now, I don't predict things, so I claim that I've influenced them on that number. And again, I have little cute variations, but this is just as effective as using that or the Himber pad or using a double-backed pad. I mean, depending on how you want to do your add a number, just be simple. I think that this tendency towards using complicated methods or methods that don't work, or expensive methods that call for electronics, is probably a waste of time. I mean, I was with my friend Ted Karmelovich. We were at some mentalism convention, and we said that, in this room, Ted said, there must be $500,000 worth of electronic equipment. There's Moshe with a $2 nail writer. He's getting the same effects that they're doing, and that's the point. We don't need special wallets. We don't need to buy. No, I have as many wallets as anybody. But be aware that there are techniques that don't call for them. A lot of critics write very well about how I make it feel so homey with envelopes and balls of paper and, just what seems like knickknacks, because I don't want to be overwhelmed with material things. So, and plus electronics, I think, look, even the best electronics will let you down on the day you need it the most. Okay? I mean, it's just not going to work that day. After I did the show in London once, and we were, if I couldn't predict something like we had a safe there that had 100,000 pounds in it. And every night I'd have the audience pick some numbers and whatever it was, and the safe would be opened. And, the point is I always got the one that could be opened because it was an electronic opener that I used a remote control to open the safe. Being young and stupid, I never changed the battery, but it was the last night of the performance after a month in London, and thankfully the way it was constructed is it locks when the battery runs out, so they don't get a chance to get the money. It just didn't work. So it was a sad night for me, but better than losing $100,000 or 100,000 pounds.
Oh.
It was beautiful. I mean, every night we had to put it in the safe in the theater, and but again, it's the problem with electronics. Nowadays, I wouldn't do it that way. I'd think of some other way. I'd use a simple number switch or something. Again, you can't rely. It's my old friend Charles Reynolds, great writer, and Doug Henning's first producer, used to talk about the wrapping hand. Do you know the wrapping hand effect? Where our hand stays. See, I get a mirror image. Okay. So, all sorts of electronic devices were created. Now, the original was just a hand that was out with a eyelet, like a looped screw, and a thread that goes off stage, and it would tap. And that was all that it needed. And it never went wrong, and it was perfect. And then they started coming out with electronic ones. People began having all sorts of problems with it. I don't travel with an entourage. It's just me doing the show. And therefore, if I need a stage manager, I do, but, they don't know any secrets at all. I mean, I don't make them sign anything, but I don't let them think that there are any secrets to know. I mean, even my dressing room says, no, don't bother knocking. I know you're there. Come in. I don't want people to think I'm hiding things from them. And that is perhaps the strongest message not to do that. All right, so we're talking about structure. Okay, so you notice how the structure show is moving upwards in difficulty. Okay, then I move to from this sort of thing to maybe tossed out a few thoughts. I'll pick up something, okay, I might do a circle and a triangle, or the red hammer, or any one of a number of psychological things, or the illusions like the frog and the duck. You show it one way and show it the other way, and and I explain how it works. I mean, this is a little learning moment. And then I would go into something that would be a bit more content heavy. For example, I would use, a dice effect, or a truth and lies, or something again that people understand is something they really can't do. And I would finish the last 15-20 minutes with blindfold routine or Q&A, which is, I think, the strongest thing a mentalist could do. And I would finish with that. So the show literally went yes, that way. So unlike showmanship for magicians that says you begin with a bang, and then you have another plateau, and then you go down, and then you go up, and then you go down, and then you go. I think mentalism has to begin strong and get stronger. I don't think you should follow a weak routine, or a strong routine with a weak routine. In other words, it was crazy to me. Do you remember the what was the slate with the squares in them? 6 squares.
ESP.
What?
Is it ESP? ESP deck you're saying?
No, the mental epic.
Sorry?
Mental epic.
Yeah, mental epic. Okay.
Yes. So mental epic was always, think of any person anywhere in the world. Think of any number and pick a card. In other words, you had to have a simple force for the last thing, and it was always so anticlimactic to me. And one has to look at the structure of their show and understand you got to keep building. You can't return and go backwards and suddenly, after you do a miracle, then you do something stupid. No, you got to keep growing and growing and growing. So I think that the basic theories for magic don't hold true for mentalism.
All right. And let me ask you about this. I saw, I think I saw it on YouTube, because back when you did it, like I was a small kid, I think, and I didn't get the chance to watch it on television. But I think you are the very first person, I believe, who actually read people's mind through the big screen of the Times Square city, right?
Yes.
So that was like incredible. I mean, that was like out of box thinking. It's not the way. So you did that many years before, and now like that was like a modern thing which you did way back then, right?
Right.
Through reading the people's mind in the Times Square city through the big screen.
Yes.
So back in that time, how did you get this innovative idea, and what was the inspiration to do that?
Well, there was that big screen there. It was used for commercials and everything in the middle of Times Square. And we were doing a show, and we rented the screen for a few minutes to do our thing, and it was simply a card force with the audience, and then I demonstrated it big, big, big in Times Square on a giant jumbotron
Wow.
video. But it came off beautiful, and it's a pretty amazing piece. But again, you always are looking for something that'll play big. Now, I hear that, what's his name? I've frozen on his name for 1 second. David Blaine.
Hmm.
David Blaine has a new special where he's going to
Ascension,
get
right?
a what?
Ascension. He's
Yeah,
going up with a hot air balloon. Is that what you're talking?
no, this is with electricity, isn't it? He's
Okay.
doing something with electricity in his new special. I
I
think it's
heard that
next
David
week.
is having a new special called Ascension, where he's grabbing a hot air balloons and flying up in the sky.
Okay. I mean, whatever it is, I think he's amazing, but I don't think it's magic. I think he's a daredevil. And I think he's a very skilled manager of audiences, and he has brilliant ideas. But I think he's left magic way behind him. He's really a daredevil. He does things no one would dare to do. And he really could has the world's record for holding his breath underwater. I mean, that's not a joke. There's some people who dedicate their lives to their creations. And David Blaine is one of those people. He has incredible nerve. He has great creativity, and he's a nice guy. That's the other thing to realize that people who seem nice are nice. I really in this business for 40 years, whatever. I haven't met a lot of bad people. I really haven't. Most people are very kind. They're very nice. You just give them a chance. I mean, now that we have COVID, maybe people have time to think about some of this. But so yeah, so that's the structure of I think of how mentalism should go.
That
Up,
was a
up, up. Now,
beautiful explanation, Mark. I mean, this will really help the people out there, the performers out there, to think a lot about structuring their own show.
no, absolutely. I
But
mean,
the
they
times
should
have
get other
changed. I mean,
people.
we are going through hard times. Things have changed. Now, like you said, you can't do this thing like if it was a stage show, you will run across the stage and do, sort of thing in a very energetic and entertaining way. Now it's through online. So things have changed, style have changed. But I truly believe after a few months, everything will come back to normal. And then let's hope that
Yes,
we'll be going back to stage and perform live shows. So
I love
which
stage.
I want to ask is that this is something which I always ask to mentalists out there to understand and to know about their thought process or their understanding about this. So the question which I'm going to ask you is that you know that nowadays, as the internet is exploding with a lot of secrets, techniques on YouTube, even small kids are learning that and performing it and claiming it as a mentalist. And there's two scenarios when people watch this. When a 13-year-old kid performs mentalism, then he claim it as no, I studied micro expression, I know psychology, body language, and it doesn't make any sense for the public. So
No.
what the public might be thinking is that okay, well, this kid is doing tricks, and that mentalist is doing it for real. Or maybe they will think, okay, so if this kid can do sort of things like the real mentalist does, then I think that mentalist is also using tricks as this kid does. So these are the two scenarios which the public can think about the situation.
Third scenario.
Okay, what was the
There's
third
three
scenario?
scenarios. Three scenarios. The third scenario is that you make them so confused and they're having such a good time, they give up worrying about it and they just sit back in the seat and enjoy the show. That's what I find. I find that my audience says we tried to figure you out and it really was hurting our brain. We just figured we're going to sit back and enjoy this.
Yes.
Because if you
What's your
sit there
thought
the
on
whole
small kids
time,
taking, learning this and doing it as mentalism?
what's that?
What I was asking is that what's your thought on small kids learning these stuffs, like 12-year, 10-year-old kid taking it, these stuffs
I
and
don't think they
doing
could
it as
pull it
mentalism?
off. I don't think they could pull it off. I don't think they could do it. They're not going to be convincing. And it'll take them a while till they realize they're not getting the reaction they wanted, and they'll find something else, and they'll do card tricks. And that's why I don't do card tricks, any cards. I don't use cards. I've had 8 different hour-and-a-half mind game shows, not one card. Well, I did a memorized deck, but that was just for, again, an example of something to do that shows spectacular, but still is people understand it. I did the Knights tour. I did, Lior Menor made a wonderful, and I think Chaim Goldenberg, a computer-generated Knights tour where the audience, could start at any point and you tell them what your back is to the thing. I mean, it takes a lot of brain power and you got to keep remembering it. But you could get back to the first box where they move each one like a knight. I didn't enjoy doing that trick because it's not a trick. It's a real, it follows a pattern, but it's not a pattern ABC. And they can begin anywhere they want. And they do it on a computer that's projected on a wall. And you don't look at anything. So, yeah, there's things that call for super amounts of concentration. And there's other things that are just, a delight to do.
Perfect.
And, but I don't think a young person could pull it off. I don't think they have the humor, because that's an important element. The humor and the stage presence to do it well.
That's
Now,
one
if they're
important
claiming they're doing miracles, I think eventually they'll be outed by anybody. I mean, a newspaper reporter could tell. I mean, I don't get covered by the science section. I get covered by the entertainment section. I don't want to be covered by the news section.
Okay, so one more question, I want to ask you.
Please take your time.
Yeah, so we know the fact that every magician cannot become a mentalist. I mean, even though it's two different genres, and it's easy actually nowadays to learn mentalism as there is many internet sources available. Back in those days, it was never easy because we had to read a lot of books. But nowadays,
Sure.
people get DVDs from Penguin Magic or Illusionist or whatever Murphy's, and they can learn it directly. But what I was going to ask you is that even though if few people learn mentalism, they cannot be a great mentalist, and every great mentalist cannot be a great thinker as well. So in order to be a great thinker in the mentalism genre, so according to you, how a professional mentalist can become a great thinker in mentalism?
Well, first of all, I don't think every mentalist could be both. It's like not every great actor could be a great singer.
Yeah.
I think that there are some inventors who are far more creative than me. Great inventors. But I think I could pull off a performance that will put anybody else to shame. So I'm more a performer than an inventor. Yes, I've invented a bunch of things. Yes, they're terrific and wonderful. Yes, the books are available. Here. from Richard Mark.
Yeah.
Again, you have the price list, and
Yeah, I
the
have the
viewers
price
of
list. I will send it to the
your
group.
viewers your viewers get 25% off. And these are valuable books. I mean, these are my profession. I make a living. I make a very good living. I make an excellent living. In fact, I feel like retiring. Um, well, I've traveled the world, and it's a wonderful brotherhood. I mean, look how I'm meeting you now. It's
Yeah,
not under the
pure
best
magic. I mean, I
conditions.
am there right now, there in at your room, and you are here in my room. Through like
Yeah, yeah.
this is wonderful. Yeah.
Uh, it's a wonderful brotherhood. Um, and we're bound together by the same things, which are interest in the mind, interest in entertaining. We're not interested in robbing banks. And I don't know if there's any group that gets together every week just to discuss robbing banks. Um, Maybe there is. I don't know. I'm never invited.
All right. So one more thing is that there is nothing like a small effect or a big effect. It all depends upon how we deal with it and how we present it. So
Yes.
one thing which I want to ask you is that the mentalism effect where we do in the close-up scenario and the mentalism effects we do in the stage, presentation might be different. In order to, we have to take this effect which we perform on close-up scenario on stage, and if you are performing these effects on stage, then we have to make it play big. We have to study the theater. We have to study acting. We should have that charisma. We should have that stage presence. So how can, apart from all these things, how can a person take the mentalism effect, which they do it in the close-up scenario, and make it play big on stage?
Well, I think every effect they use has to be considered. How do I make this big? I mean, I do confabulation. I mean, it's just a piece of paper that big that they unfold and is that big. And, I used to be saying the audience is not going to buy this idea. And I've never been questioned why is the piece of paper so small. Of course, I call people up. We do all sorts of things. I run through an audience. I mean, the point is the way you structure things. You play it big. And I've seen people take giant effects and make it small. I've seen giant illusions and giant mentalism effects just fall flat where the predictions roll down from the walls and go across the stage, and ultimately the audience is bored. I mean, I think you gotta think big, but that doesn't mean making the props big. It means you have to be big, and you have to entertain them, and you have to guide their thoughts, and you have to believe what you're doing is real, and you have to understand the history of what you're doing. Know who created the effects. When I'm on stage and I'm doing an effect, which is part of the reason I'm against theft of effects, and you get permission to use the effect, or you read it and you know the author. When you're on stage, those dead people are with you on the stage. All those wonderful creators of the past several hundred years are standing on stage with you, applauding you, because you've respected their work. If you steal or claim something's yours, then I don't think they're happy. So I think we have to also be humble. And over the years, I've certainly become more humble. I think David Blaine has become more humble. I think Max Maven has become more humble. I think that with age comes humility. You have to realize that there's other people who stepped on this earth before you There's other people who did effects for you. And I think coming in with that awareness gives you an extra strength. And it holds true for magic too. I think, again, if you know the history of an effect, you do it better. Because that person now is standing with you on the stage. You know, so learn your mentalism history. And there's not a lot to learn. I mean, look, I think the color books by Max Maven, Animan's book on methods, and Corinda and my book, Mind Games, you will put those 4 books together, you have 100,000 hours of mentalism.
That's true.
I mean, is it, yeah. I mean, everything is there. Nothing new. You don't need electronics. They're exciting. They're fun. But again, they're going to fail you at the very worst time. But with age comes wisdom and humor, hopefully. Or you fade.
Yeah. And so I think this question which I was actually about to ask in the beginning, but I forgot to ask. Then with this we can then end up the session. Yeah, we are taking too much time. I know that you are super busy. So this is the thing. What kind, like, we know that mentalist gives many mentalists give pseudo-scientific explanation after the show. Or they do it as a disclaimer at the beginning of the show, and after the show when people come to them and ask, how do you do all this stuff? Most of the mentalists give pseudo-scientific explanation. So when people comes to you and ask, hey Mark, how you do all these things, then what's the explanation that you give to them?
Okay. First of all, I believe in disclaimers. I use 3 disclaimers in my show, beginning, middle, and end. It's also why I wrote my book, the book for the public, which in Europe was called Mind Games, and in America is called 6 Keys to Unleash the Power of Your Mind. I wrote those books so people say, I want to learn more about the mind. This book is what you should buy. And where do you find that book? At Barnes & Noble in the business section. That's where the book is. Because I don't want it to be in self-help. Because it deals with real things like memory and putting ideas together and puzzle solving and group communication and nonverbal communication. So the book is totally real. And it's what I'm demonstrating on stage, not necessarily all at once. So when people say to me, you know, explain to me in 1 sentence what you've done, well, on stage I say, nothing I do this evening involves the supernatural or the occult. Rather, an application of known, if not necessarily understood, techniques. Okay, and then in the middle I just say, you know, something, and I close also with an old line. I don't do anything that any 10-year-old with 30 years of experience couldn't do. Which again leaves us puzzled, but also smiling. And that's important. I want them to be puzzled. I want them to have their minds blown. But I don't want them thinking I have mystical powers. Now, where it gets difficult is I have worked with the police and with the FBI and with the CIA, and I do a lot of that sort of thing. I'm very close with the police commissioner and with the mayor. But I do with them, even the football team, the Giants here, American football. I do training for them. I did the rugby team in Australia. I do mental training with them. All right, how to pick up nonverbal signals. But again, none of that's fraudulent. I mean, that's all real stuff. So it goes in and out, but I try to, again, if you want to learn this, you go to a class. If you want to read it, you get my book. If you want to be entertained, come to my show.
Perfect. So yeah, that's good that you don't mix all these things. You keep the entertainment as a different thing, and you keep your academics as a different thing. That's really great thing. Yeah. So with that being said, let's wind up the session. So thank you so much, Marc Salem, for
Namaste. Thank you, my new brother.
Honor to have you. This was indeed such a great talk from you, and this is going to really inspire and make mentalists think a lot about how they do their act, how they structure their act, and how to give explanation after the show as well. Thank you so much.
Send me a copy. I'll send you more stuff.